No one expected a simple lake purchase to ignite a neighborhood war, and no one imagined the loudest voice would be the one that lost everything. When Daniel bought the quiet lake beside his home, he believed it would bring peace. The water shimmered every morning, reflecting the sky like a promise of calm. But that calm shattered the day Karen stormed onto his lawn, screaming that the lake belonged to everyone. Her voice carried entitlement, fear, and something darker. She warned him that the HOA would handle him if he didn't allow access immediately. Daniel didn't argue. He simply listened. He already knew the truth, and that truth would soon change everything, within days. HOA notices appeared. Letters claimed violations that didn't exist. Karen watched from her porch as if victory was guaranteed. Neighbors whispered, unsure who to believe. Daniel stayed silent, letting the pressure build. Every warning, every threat, every false claim was documented quietly. Karen mistook silence for weakness. She demanded meetings. She demanded control. And when the HOA sided with her, she smiled like the lake was already hers. But what Karen didn't know was that the purchase came with rights far beyond water. The land survey hid a detail no one bothered to read, and when Daniel finally decided to speak, the entire neighborhood would be forced to listen. Karen's confidence grew louder with each passing day. She told neighbors the lake would stay public, that Daniel was bluffing, that rules always win. HOA members echoed her words, sending fines and warnings, escalating pressure with polished smiles. Daniel remained calm, almost distant, which only fueled Karen's rage further. One afternoon, she marched to the lake with guests, setting chairs near the water, laughing loudly as if to prove ownership through noise. Daniel watched from afar, phone recording silently. He never interrupted. He never raised his voice. He simply waited. That night, he opened a folder thick with paperwork. Deeds. Surveys. Legal filings. The lake wasn't just private. The land around it created a boundary no one had challenged in decades. Previous owners had avoided conflict. Daniel wasn't afraid of it. The HOA scheduled a formal hearing. Karen arrived dressed for dominance, confident the room would support her. Daniel arrived alone, carrying a single envelope. When it was his turn to speak, the room leaned forward, expecting excuses. Instead, Daniel placed copies of the survey on the table. The lines were clear. The measurements undeniable. Silence fell as board members traced borders with shaking fingers. Karen's smile cracked. She interrupted, accusing manipulation, demanding enforcement. Daniel calmly explained the next step. A legal fence would be built. Perfectly placed. Entirely lawful. Karen laughed nervously, unaware that laughter was the last control she had. Construction began early on a bright morning. Trucks rolled in. Stakes were planted. Bright flags marked boundaries Karen had sworn didn't exist. Neighbors gathered, whispering as reality slowly took shape. The fence didn't block views. It blocked access. Clean. Precise. Unbreakable. Karen lost control. She shouted at workers, demanding they stop. She called the HOA president, then the city, then anyone who would answer. Daniel stood nearby, calm, hands in pockets, watching the law work exactly as written. Officials arrived, reviewed permits, and nodded in agreement. Everything was legal. Everything was final. The fence curved in a way no one expected. It didn't just protect the lake. It redirected foot traffic, cutting off Karen's usual path entirely. Her daily routine shattered in front of everyone. HOA emails went silent. Meetings were postponed. The authority Karen relied on suddenly vanished. Neighbors avoided her gaze, understanding now who had been wrong. That evening, Daniel walked along the water alone. The lake reflected the fence, the sky, and the calm he had waited for. He didn't feel victorious. He felt relieved. Karen stood on her porch, watching the reflection too. But where Daniel saw peace, she saw loss. Control had slipped through her fingers, replaced by a reality she couldn't shout away, and the final twist hadn't even happened yet. The lawsuit arrived a week later, exactly as Daniel expected. The HOA claimed misuse, obstruction, and emotional distress. Karen believed this was her comeback. Court would restore her authority. public sympathy would turn the story in her favor, Daniel didn't panic. He forwarded the papers to his attorney and continued his routine like nothing had changed. That calm unsettled everyone watching. In court, the truth unfolded slowly. Surveyors testified. Records surfaced. Old agreements resurfaced from forgotten archives. The judge listened carefully, asking questions no one expected. Karen shifted uncomfortably as each answer closed another door. Then came the revelation: the lake purchase included an easement clause granting Daniel exclusive control over surrounding land usage. Not just fences. Access. Paths. Even maintenance authority. The HOA had no legal standing at all. Karen's attorney stopped speaking. The judge ruled swiftly. The lawsuit was dismissed. HOA fines were voided. Legal costs were assigned back to the association. Karen didn't look at Daniel. She stared straight ahead, frozen, as if movement would make it worse. Outside the courthouse, neighbors whispered again, but this time the tone was different. Respect replaced doubt. Daniel walked away quietly. He didn't celebrate. He didn't explain. He let the truth speak for itself, but Karen wasn't done unraveling. And the neighborhood wasn't done watching. Life returned to normal for everyone except Karen. The fence stood firm. The lake stayed silent. HOA meetings resumed without her voice leading them. She tried reclaiming influence, but trust had dissolved. No one wanted conflict anymore. Daniel noticed small changes. Neighbors waved again. Children played without tension. Even the air felt lighter. The lake reflected peace, not arguments. One afternoon, Karen approached the fence. No shouting. No threats. Just quiet frustration. She asked if access could be discussed. Daniel listened respectfully, then declined gently. Not out of anger, but boundaries mattered now. Karen nodded slowly. For the first time, she understood. Weeks passed. The HOA revised rules. Transparency replaced control. The neighborhood healed in ways no one expected. Conflict had forced honesty. Daniel sat by the water one evening, realizing the fence wasn't about winning. It was about clarity. When lines are clear, peace follows. Karen watched from a distance, quieter now. The meltdown had passed. What remained was acceptance. The lake shimmered as it always had. Unchanged. Patient. Waiting for humans to learn, and in that reflection, the entire neighborhood saw the lesson they'd ignored for years. Time revealed what anger had hidden. Karen sold her home quietly months later. No announcement. No drama. Just departure. The new owners respected boundaries from day one. The HOA changed leadership. Rules became fair. Power became responsibility. Daniel never joined meetings. He didn't need to. His silence had already reshaped everything. Neighbors sometimes asked how he stayed calm through it all. Daniel always smiled and said nothing. Some truths don't need repeating. The fence remained, weathered but strong. A reminder that ownership isn't about dominance. It's about respect. The lake continued reflecting mornings, untouched by past noise. Daniel planted trees along the boundary, softening the divide. Not to erase it, but to coexist with it. Peace wasn't loud. It didn't announce victory. It simply arrived and stayed, and that was the real twist no one expected. Looking back, the story was never about a lake. It was about control, boundaries, and the cost of entitlement. Karen believed authority came from noise. Daniel understood it came from truth. When those forces collided, only one could last. The legal fence didn't divide the neighborhood. It saved it. It forced clarity. It ended manipulation. And it restored peace without a single shout. Neighbors learned that respect protects more than rules ever could. The HOA learned humility. And Daniel learned patience always pays off. The lake still shines under the sun, calm and unchanged, reflecting a lesson written in quiet strength. And that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.